Hey everybody, welcome back to Satisfactory update number 7. So at the end of the last episode, you may have noticed I muted my mic like a boss. um, I never unmuted it, and I recorded 3 more episodes, unfortunately. So instead of losing all that footage, I decided to do a bit of a voiceover here, so that's what we're doing. As you can see, we are still drinking our heavy oil eggnog. Um, at the end of the episode, I was getting the iron production set up in order to support our steel mill. So I got all the miners run into the truck depot. The truck depot is hooked up, and right now we are just recording the path for our tractor, actually, in order to bring the raw iron over to our new steel mill. We needed 480 iron per belt, and there's 2 belts. So we needed these additional miners in order to supplement the miners we already had existing, and that will give us 960 total steel ingots per minute, which we definitely needed. It'll make a very big difference, especially to steel beams, because we're super short of steel beams at the moment. The main reason being a lot of them are being used up in our encased beams, so increasing our steel production is going to make a huge difference. And this is how we are going about doing that. So I'm recording the path. I get it back. The truck is up and running, bringing iron over. So now we have to upgrade our belts in the steel production facility. They all need to be Mark IV in order to get the 480 coal per minute and the 480 iron per minute. So I go around doing all that. I think I ended up running out of encased beams during this process, if I remember. So the last few are Mark III, but that's not an issue because it's the last few. They don't need to have 480 per minute in the last few. I also had to kind of rejig my existing belts and upgrade some of them to Mark IV as well outside. My existing miner belts, in order to incorporate the new belts coming out of the truck station, which is what's going on here. I'm running these belts back to get the iron ore out of the truck station. It was a little tricky just because of where the steel ingots are coming out of our facility. They're kind of blocking the truck access. Now, eventually, I think the goal is going to be to have trains delivering the coal and the iron to the steel. We're going to have these steel belts probably running out permanently from here, going to the main platform, but it would be nice to have trains delivering. So that is sort of the goal for in the future. So once we got all that sorted and our steel belts hooked up and everything running as it should be, it was time to go back to the base. I still have to plumb the steel ingots into our actual steel production facility, but, as usual, I got super distracted by gifts, so I ran around collecting gifts for a bit on the way back to the base. And then once we do get back to the base, I begin hooking up the steel ingots to the steel production, which is what's going on here. This truck depot is no longer needed for steel unloading, so I did disassemble the belts leading from it. Because our belts are now coming in from what is basically, I'm considering the east side of the platform. So they're coming in directly, basically, from the steel mill into the steel production area. So all these belts that were being fed by the truck station are now kind of all redundant. So I do go into our tunnels and disassemble all those, get those out of the way. Kinda, I don't want to say neaten the tunnels up, but make them a little more organized. Get the elevators out of the way as well. And yeah, you can see on the wall, those are now where the belts are coming into the facility. That hole there, you can see the steel ingots ready to go. So we're going to Mark IV belt this, get this into our production line. Now, the steel beam production line that we're looking at here with these 8 assemblers, I believe it uses 480 steel per minute. So that one belt is purely going to be dedicated to making steel beams. That thing I just removed was the balancer for the steel before we had our upgraded steel line. So that was just if the steel ingots servicing the steel pipes backed up, it would be shot down into our steel beams. So it's just a way to kind of get our steel beam production, having it continue, I guess, before we had all these upgrades done. But now it's no longer needed. So just got to go upgrade all of these belts, and that will make steel much better. So after we did that, I noticed for some reason our rotors, or stators, excuse me, weren't running properly. Now it looks like there is a copper wire problem. So there's no copper wire coming into the facilities, you can see, which is not correct. There should definitely be copper wire coming in. I had it calculated so our copper wire constructors were making enough to support the cable being made, as well as those 3 stator constructors. So I don't know why this is happening. I'm going through the hellscape that is our tunnels, trying to make sure I didn't put any weird splits or anything anywhere, or like having copper wire go somewhere it's not supposed to, and it all looks fine. So the issue must be up here, and it definitely is. You can see the constructors making the copper wire are not operating all the time. They keep going yellow, and the issue is there is not enough Caterium ingots coming in. So that is a big problem. They're also not fully slugged out, so I do go slug them out. I do upgrade the belts, but I have to get more Caterium ingots, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to shut off the constructors making the Caterium wire, because right now the Caterium wire is 100% just going into the sink, and it's actually blocking up the lines going to the sink, so really it's super unnecessary. These Caterium ingots could be used elsewhere. So I turn off, I think, 4... I keep 2 running, so I do use Caterium wire in some recipes, or in some building, but the other 4 I turn off in order to keep Caterium ingots going. I also add a couple more smelters down below and upgrade some of those belts, so we do have lots of Caterium ingots going. I do also have to upgrade or unlock a few things in the man, because we're getting ready for our next big project, which is going to be the power control center. And part of the power control center is having the switches to control which power is coming in, but also a big part of it is having these batteries. So I've talked about it a little bit. The purpose of the power control center is if we lose power basically, I'm going to have to bring power up in stages. I can't just flip the switch on, because there's going to be too much draw on the system. So the idea is I have different production areas on different circuits and different power generation areas on different circuits. So the first power generation area is going to be these batteries. And these batteries are what we're going to use to start our coal production on the platform. And then once coal production is up and running, we can start all the other power generation that we are going to have constructed. And all of that is going to be controlled through the power... What are they calling it? The power control building. So that's what those batteries are for. Part of the battery production made me realize that I am completely out of plastic, so I had to go back to our temporary plastic setup and grab a handful more plastic. The reason I need the plastic is I wanted to upgrade the floors in those coal generating facilities. I wanted to use, I can't remember what it's called, like the shiny concrete, I think is what it's called, or it's something like that anyways. The shiny concrete. It looks like shiny concrete. And it takes plastic, which I didn't realize, so I need to get some more plastic. So I want all those the coal power buildings to have the shiny floor. I think this looks cool, especially once we have all the batteries in there and incorporated. I think it'll look really, really cool, so that's the main reason I need the plastic. The other reason is I have that temporary computer assembler manufacturer set up on the platform, so that also needs plastic. So here we are heading back to the platform. You can see part of this whole big power project is these power pylons. I think I talked about it a little bit before I muted myself, so yeah, those pylons have 6 wires. Those 6 wires are going to be required to keep the circuits separate, basically. All the different circuits on the map separated. So here I am upgrading the floors. You can sort of see how, well, A, how cool it looks, but B, how I have the batteries set up in here in these little rooms. And those are all going to be brought over to what is going to be our power control center. So there were a few places I was thinking about building this power control center. One was going to be on top of the Caterium area where the Caterium production is happening, but I decided that wasn't going to be big enough. So I decided instead to build it over where this crash ship is. So here I am trying to get the spacing sorted. there's a lot of crap on this island that I need to get on top of, mainly that big wreck. So I want to make sure that where my floor is going to be, where the control area is going to be above this wreck, and that looks like it'll do just nicely. So we're going to go ahead and build the floor here. And basically this entire island is going to be dedicated to the power control center. So at some point I had to run back and get some more materials to build this power control center, and I decided I was sick of hearing the goat music, so I think I went and I bought all the other tapes. I think I bought them all. I have a bunch of tickets. Yeah, I totally bought them all. So yeah, we're gonna switch up the goat music. The goat music's great, don't get me wrong, but it was time for a change of tunes. And I believe we went with Sanctum first, or Sanctum 2, which is a very big difference compared to the goat music. Yeah. Yeah, Sanctum and Sanctum 2 are great tapes. Very motivational for building. Yeah, so you can kind of see how the floor is going to be laid out for this power control center. The gap in the middle, the switches are basically, the power switches are going to encompass that gap, like go around the outside of that gap, and that's where we're going to bring all the wires up. Just to keep things a little neater. So all the wires are going to come up through that hole in the floor. I also wanted the control center to look like a control center, so I like the idea of these angled windows. I think that it kind of worked out pretty cool. The issue I had, though, is I tried to do these 45-degree corners here, and I thought there was a part that we could slot into that little triangle here in between the two windows, but there's not. So they have them going... Yeah, you can see the tilted corner walls. I need that, but inversed. And they don't have them, unfortunately. So that window plan didn't really pan out the way I was hoping, so I ended up having to redo it. It's just square now. It still looks kind of cool, but it's square. And I had to use these concave walls to do my corners. So yeah, I put these windows out, made it look fancy. I got the whole thing enclosed. Oh yeah, listen to that sweet, sweet jams on the boombox. And yeah, I threw some lights in here as well just to make it look a little more interesting. I believe I did eventually decide that this building was too short. I didn't film it, but in between episodes, I did actually end up removing all of this and raising this whole building by maybe another 4 or 5 blocks. So it looks the same as this, it's just higher. So here I am playing with the switches. I've never actually used power switches before. I think they were introduced, I want to say in the update where they introduced the pipes. I think they may have had them in there, so I have played the game since they've been implemented. I've just never used them. So this is me trying to figure out how exactly they work. Shockingly, they work exactly as you'd expect. One side's the input, one side's the output. Switch turns on and off. Pretty simple. Which is good, because this gets real confusing with all the wires I have coming through here. Yeah, so you can see that's the battery switch. So all those batteries I put in are going to be plumbed to that battery switch, and then the battery switch is going to go and plumb into the main, or wire into like the main circuit. Or I guess the common circuit where all the switches are going to eventually link to. So we can turn the batteries on, use the battery power to turn the coal generation on, use the coal generation to turn the fuel generation on, and so forth and so forth. So this is me outside the power control center. I needed a way to bring all these wires over from all these buildings and circuits, and I thought this looked kind of like a cool way to do it. Like a little transformer station. So the way these power nodes are set up on the power plants, the right hookup is the batteries, and the left hookup is the generators. And I kind of followed that pattern for all 3 power generating platforms. So you can see here the switch is hooked up. I got power running, which is good news because that took a while. And it gets really confusing down as where all these wires are coming. But yeah, it looks like it's working. So all I gotta do is hook up all these other switches and everything will be money. And here I have the battery switch hooked up. You can see the batteries are charging, so everything looks like it's working out well. And anyhow, that's pretty much all you missed. That was 3 episodes condensed down into what, like 15 minutes? So sorry about the muted videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please give us a like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And we'll see you next time when my audio is not muted. So again, I apologize, but thank you for watching. Cheers.